done a bunch of expeditions, and learned that there are many challenges. There's the technology challenge, there's a regulatory challenge, there are a bunch of things to do, but those expeditions have really helped us hone our skills. This is the Atlantis, the sister ship of the Tommy Thompson, which is based out of University of Washington. It's the mothership for Alvin, and that's the typical approach. These research subs that are out there were never meant to make money. They were never meant to be cost effective. They were meant to do cool stuff, get lots of samples, go deep, and they all require these huge ships that are very expensive, particularly when you're not using them, which is most of the time. What we found after researching the market was that there had been a technology used at the University of Hawaii where they got away from the big ship by disconnecting the launch and recovery from the ship and towing the submarine out on a platform that would then sink underwater and be able to be launched off that, go do its mission, come back, come to the surface. And you could tow it back and forth. You could move the people with a Zodiac, so you had a soft-sided light vessel going back and forth. Because the challenge in the open ocean is operating in high sea states, big waves. Anybody can do it in the calm of a harbor. It's really tough when you've got 10 and 15-foot waves. The other challenge was all the subs were three-person subs. And we found after the first few dives, I'd go down and I'd be cruising around in Puget Sound and somebody say, hey, what's that fish? And I said, I don't know, I just make subs. When you get a researcher down there who just gets passionate about the fish or the crabs or the shipwreck that you're on, that permeates the sub. It's a must-have. It's like going to a museum with no labels and no guide. It's night and day. So we said, okay, you got to have a pilot. You got to have what we call a subject matter expert. And then you don't do the coolest thing you're ever going to do in your life by yourself. You take your wife, your son, your daughter, your best friend, and so you got to have 4 people. All the subs out there were either 2- or 3-person subs. And then you also needed to have enough depth of field that you could tell a story behind the sub. So a sphere is a great thing for pressure. It's a terrible thing to live in. And if you look at videos that are done in subs, bubble subs or whatever, they typically are shots outside that could have been scuba diving shots or robot shots or selfies because you can't get enough depth of field. With a cylinder shape, you can have a producer, director, cameraman. You can have the talent in the dome. It just totally changes it. And we practice with things like fixed seating. And now we just have sort of an open bay. It's a very participatory activity when you come in the sub. So to do this, we had to use a different material. Titanium is the common. There's some high-strength carbon steels that are used. I think the Russians use those. But titanium is, let's put it this way, carbon fiber is 3 times better on a strength to buoyancy basis than titanium. And underwater, that's what you care about. It's not strength to weight, it's strength to buoyancy. And yet no one had done that. And there are certifying or semi-certifying agencies, the Pressure Vessels for Human Occupation Committee that handles hyperbaric chambers in submarines. You have the SubSafe program in the Navy. These programs are over the top in their rules and regulations, but they had nothing with carbon fiber. So we had to go out and work on that. And one of the things I learned is, when you're outside the box, it's really hard to tell how far outside the box you really are. And we were pretty far out there. So we have a carbon fiber hull, it's 5 inches thick, and titanium domes on the end. One of the things that I think a lot of people appreciate is if you're not breaking things, you're not innovating. If you're operating within a known environment, as most submersible manufacturers do, they don't break things. Woods Hole does a lot of autonomous things. They have a whole wall of stuff they've broken. To me, the more stuff you've broken, the more innovative you've been. And this is a 3rd scale model that we took to the chamber at the University of Washington and took it to destruction. And once you go over 6,000 PSI in the Ocean Sciences Building, you can only do that at night. And then they get on the loudspeaker and they tell everybody to get out. And now I'm standing next to this chamber, and we blow this thing up. It's the loudest thing I've ever heard. It shook the whole building, blew out all the pressure sensors, which I had to rebuy for the university. But it helps us validate an acoustic monitoring system, because in the research found out that with composites, what you really want is acoustic monitoring. Strain gauges don't tell you a lot, because they just tell you the deformation on the inner surface. When you're dealing with composites, acoustics will pop and crackle, and it's almost like having an EKG. You can tell how the hull is doing. And if we were going to stretch this new material in a new environment with people inside, we needed to know well before it failed that it failed. Our rule is we risk capital, we don't risk people. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, here's a new idea for the sub, if the end result of that failing is that we cancel a mission or we lose a little money, that's fine. If somebody gets hurt, then we go and find out a different approach. And with the acoustic monitoring system, we can tell if the hull has had some problem over time. Maybe it was run into by a forklift and we didn't know it, or dropped in its transport on its way to the East Coast. Because the pressure and temperature at 1,000 meters and 2,000 meters and 3,000 meters is always the same. And so if it's making noises at that depth that it didn't make on the last dive, then we can stop the dive, we can go up, and we can find out what might have happened. We made one hull. I took it to 4,000 meters, and it made a lot of noise, which is a very sphincter tightening experience. We brought it back, and it wasn't getting quieter on the second dive. It should have been dramatically quieter. If you think about it, when you get to this maximum pressure, it's a thing called the Kaiser effect. You get a lot of popping and crackling, and the next time you go to that pressure, you should have a lot less. All those weak fibers and voids have all been taken care of, and this hull wasn't doing it. So we scrapped it, we went back, we built another one. The first one we had done was with a highly recommended marine manufacturer. We went to aerospace quality. We use the same pre-preg that's used on the 787. With our partners, and we couldn't have done any of this without partners. Great partner in Electro Impact up in Everett. Great to be in this community where there is such a preponderance of expertise in titanium and carbon fiber and manufacturing and engineering. We did work with Janicki, Boeing, NASA. There's 667 layers of carbon fiber in just what's called a 090 axial and rotational layup, which is not normally done, but in the ocean, that's all you see. You don't get any torsional moments. We built this hull up. We tested it at the Deep Ocean Test Facility in Annapolis, Maryland, an amazing facility, the only one on the planet where you can put something like that for a test. And then in 2021, after having to cancel twice before, we were able to go out and dive on the Titanic. The challenges that we've run into in regulatory transportation, we're shipping containers across country, across international boundaries. During the pandemic, we got all of our mission specialists in with much difficulty, and we're able to do some dives, capture some amazing footage. Come back to the media part of this. If I'm going to change our awareness of the ocean, it really is going to come through the media. And we do a lot with video. We had some great 4K video that we put out last year. When we launch something on YouTube, we typically 10, 20,000 views is considered pretty good. This year we launched a video that got to 1 million views after 2 months. We thought, wow, that's great. And then 3 weeks ago we launched a video of our 8K, and it went to 4 million views in 2 weeks. And I don't know if you've had viral videos, but it's really sort of a fun feeling. You wake up in the morning, you want to see how many more people. It's very addictive. But what we're doing with the 8K and the 4K is to try to make this more accessible for the folks who can't afford the $250,000 that it costs to go with us on the dive. But what we want to do is do immersive exhibits like the Van Gogh and other immersive exhibits that are very popular, so that you can go out and see an image of the Titanic as it was just a few months ago, or over the period of years as we go back year after year, in photorealistic 3-story high image